I am Sumit Gupta, and this is Choosing Leadership, a podcast for high performers with big dreams at work and life. This is a podcast for people who know deep inside that there is more. Have you achieved a great deal of success, but on the inside you still feel empty and like an imposter? Do other people see you as a strong leader? And you wonder why it still feels so lonely and suffocating? The aim of this podcast is not to provide you more content, but instead shift the context under which you operate. I dare to speak to the tremendous power which you already have rather than what you believe are your strengths and limitations. This podcast is called Choosing Leadership because that is what leadership is, a choice. And this is the Leadership Journey series. I am interviewing leaders with an interesting story to learn how they got where they are today. We all have a lot to learn from each other's stories, of where we started, where we are now, and our successes and struggles on the way. With this series of interviews, my attempt is to give leaders an opportunity to share their stories and for all of us to learn from their generous sharing. Thomas is a serial entrepreneur and the CEO at Tello. He is a true all-round entrepreneur. His purpose is creating companies, opportunities, and products that improve the everyday lives of a new generation. In the interview, Thomas opens up about realizing how he was living a life that was not what he really wanted. We talk about the importance of focusing on ourselves first and the importance of happiness, friendships, experiences, and other relationships. He shares the wisdom of doing nothing and the important role sports and exercise play in his life. In addition to leading his company, he also climbs mountains, does kickboxing, races cycles, and has plans to make a movie. He knows he is more than what he does, and he doesn't let work define him. Hey Thomas, welcome to the Choosing Leadership podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So to begin with, for our listeners, can you share a little bit about yourself, who you are and what do you do today?
Yeah, now I'm Thomas. I'm from Amsterdam. I'm currently CEO of Tello, which is a fintech company focused on smaller companies and self-employed people. And we're more or less trying to become the Tinder of bookkeeping, where we use machine learning to make everything automated. And currently we have over 50,000 freelancers and entrepreneurs using our software. So we're very, very happy with where we are.
Sounds good. Yeah. So can you share a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur? Because if I remember correctly, this is not your first company.
Yeah.
So what led you down this?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. I started working first for another scale up, but then my first actual real full-time job was as a strategy consultant, working mainly in oil and gas. Back in the day when it was still cool to work in oil and gas, I think these days it's a little bit different. And I was there. I had a girlfriend, and we decided to take some cats together. And during the maintenance of the cats, you need to vacuum a lot. You need to the litter box needs to be cleaned. And we made the deal that she would vacuum the house and I would clean the litter box. And while I was doing that, and for the people who don't have cats, the litter box is where the cat goes to the toilet, but it's the grit in there and it's very dirty work for a very little bit of time. And while I was cleaning the litter box, one of my cats decided to go to the toilet in the bag of cat litter. And that gave me the idea of a disposable cat litter box. And that's the idea I went away with. And at some point, I decided to quit my job. I got a patent on the product. And together with an old colleague of mine, we raised funds and we started Poopy Cat. Indeed, the name says it all. And in 5 years' time, or almost 5 years' time, we grew the product with operations in 18 countries, but we sold in well over 30. And we got nominated, but we also were mentioned by Oprah Winfrey, and Italian Vogue always does it for the women in the listening audience. So it was a really cool journey. And after that time, we sold the company, and I was hooked to being an entrepreneur. After that, my other big company was a tech company that was actually a platform for online wedding planning. In technical terms, we used an image classifying algorithm, but let's say in more layman's terms, we used a visual planning tool. So people could pick pictures of things they liked, and then we used those pictures to create a wedding plan for them. But COVID hit in the first summer where we had our clients, and we took an early decision to stop. And that's also part of the entrepreneurial process. So of course we need to be on time and smart with stopping, so you don't push yourself over the boundary and make too much problems. Yeah, and after that, I took a role as a director for the Dutch Startup Association, which is a rotating role for 1 year. And yeah, that led me into my current position where I am today as a CEO of a scale up, where I actually came in later, but I would still have the entrepreneurial vision being appreciated.
So that's quite a journey. Yeah. So before even you started working full time, right? Can you share any particular event that shaped you towards wanting to doing your own thing or taking risk?
Yeah, I think I was actually not much of a risk taker before. So this is actually quite funny. I did have a company when I was younger, funnily also related to weddings. So we drove cars for weddings, my brother and I. But we never really saw it as an entrepreneur. And yeah, the choice of becoming an entrepreneur actually came at the same moment in my life where a lot of other things changed for me. Yeah, I think at age 26, I changed a lot. And that also changed my risk profile and my ambitions. Before that, I had the feeling I had to wear a tie to work and sit in a high tower to be successful. And now I haven't worn a tie in years.
So what happened at that age that caused that shift?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix of many things, but let's say some events, some personal events really helped me realize what was very important in life and what was not. And they kicked me out of the echo of your parents and your social environment about what is your purpose in life and how success should be achieved. And yeah, that is actually what caused me, pushed me towards, let's say, yeah, building up new friendships, but also building up a new career. And indeed, changing a risk profile from having a very secure job to doing your own thing.
Yeah. Would you be open to sharing a little bit more about that?
I would, but I'm not sure if your listeners would really appreciate it. But to give you some kind of an idea, I had a very intense relationship with my ex-girlfriend, and she was the one that sort of isolated me from a couple of my relationships, including my parents, and it helped me realize and also press the reset button of my life. So she gave me unconsciously a big opportunity to change everything, which was very difficult normally.
Yeah. And what did you realize about yourself or about the world at that point of time?
Yeah, what I realized about myself is that like I was living a life that was actually the life that I thought I wanted, but not the life I really wanted. I mentioned before sort of an echo. So of course you're being raised with the ideas of your parents, with the input of your environment and your surroundings. And you're just going into the flow, like high school, university, big job. That's the way things always went. And that's how success was defined. So that's also how I took it. But later on, I realized that actually it's more important to also focus on yourself, having quality of life, having happiness, friendships, relationships, experience. And yeah, that sort of changed the whole ambitions that I had. And especially also, I'm still very ambitious. So don't get me wrong, but still also how I position work in my life. So I don't let work define me. And if you ask people, then they would probably describe me as being very ambitious. But for me, work is lower on the priority list under, for example, the relationship with my wife.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that so openly and also putting work in its place and not because for a lot of entrepreneurs, I see this is everything. Like my company, my job is everything. Can you share a little bit about more of those things which matter to you outside of work?
Yeah, like outside of work, I think it's very important to live your life like that you take most that life gives you. And I think that's the responsibility that everybody has. You cannot change what happens to a person, but you can still change the way you respond to things that happen. So I try to live my life in that way, positive. I really believe in not trying to change the entire world, but maybe more or less trying to change your direct environment, more thinking about micro circles. And that sort of things that I believe in that are the big, let's say, accelerator for change in the world.
Yeah. So how do you deal with surprises or challenges, especially given that you are an entrepreneur and that's part of the journey? What do you do specifically to deal with and to stay balanced?
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit ADHD. So for me, stress and problems and challenges are what drives me. So if there's nothing on fire, then I get really restless. So for me, it might be a bit of a weird case in that sense. But in principle, for me, yeah, I work out a lot. I think sports is very important. I think eating is very important, but also let go and trying to follow your ways by reading or by following spirituality or meditation. And of course, for me, very important in my life is my relationships with my friends.
Yeah. So can you share how these some of these elements play a role in your life? Do you practice sports or meditation daily, weekly?
Yeah. Yeah, the meditation, unfortunately, not so much anymore. I used to be very good at it, but the problem is with me is if things go, then I stop doing that, which is actually very stupid. But yeah, if there's no problems, then I can just focus on it. I do work out a lot, so I try to work out 4 or 5 times a week. I have a gym in my office that helps. I must admit. If it wasn't the case, it'd probably be more like 3 or 2. So that helps a lot. And yeah, in the weekend I really try to focus on not working. So in the weekdays I think it's easier just to work evenings if necessary or to do other things. But I try to keep the weekend really privately. Spend time with my wife, with my dog, and we have recently got a dog, and also focus on those kind of things. And yeah, I think there's no real one road to success. I think being aware and being grateful for things you have and that are coming on your path, that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah. And what do you find most exciting about what you do?
What I find most exciting is that the company is a bit further than the companies that I had. It's part of a group, so there's 5 companies together. So Tello is one of them, and then Agero's group is the group, and the 5 other companies are of course a lot bigger. And that creates sort of an ecosystem where we have access to capital, we have access to, let's say, all the corporate benefits, but still we are in essence a startup. And I can run my business my own way as a startup. And that's, of course, super exciting to be able to do. And also to see the appreciation in a bit more, let's say, my board, who's, fairly enough said, a bit more traditional in the sense that they still let me be myself. So that gives me a lot of energy. My team gives me a lot of energy. I've now a group of amazing people working for me where, like everybody takes ownership. Everybody feels that we're on a mission. And that's, I think, very special. I hope to expand that as well.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, and also what you mentioned earlier about ADHD and firefighting, is there something which people misunderstand about you mostly?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think mainly I'm still Dutch and I'm really honest, and that sometimes is maybe difficult for people because I would just be really honest about things, and not all people are used to that. So some people would not expect that or take it the wrong way. Usually it all goes well because I think if it comes from a good place, people will see that. But sometimes it might be much for some people. So that's definitely one.
Yeah. And how do you manage that, especially when you work more internationally, when you talk with people from different cultures? How do you manage when the conversations get tough?
Yeah, I sometimes like tough conversations, and I also really like spending time in different countries and different cultures. I think that's one of the places where you're going to learn the most. If you're, let's say, in a new vulnerable position, that's where you can also like really increase your learning curve. And yeah, for me, I'm not necessarily a guy who usually gets into conflict. I consider myself to be like a kind person. I want to be a kind person and make that decision, but I'm also quite empathetic. So if I'm in other culture, I try to be very respectful and not step on anybody's toes. And it's maybe not the typical CEO profile, so that doesn't always help. But yeah, I think eventually that brings it to a better place, better world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you shared earlier, right? Spending time with your family, having going to the gym, practicing sports also keeps that perspective because then you're meeting other people, not just people from work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have, of course, a luxury to also pick and choose the people I work with now. And that also helps a little bit. But I believe that every person is interesting and has a story. So I always am keen to hear about that.
Yeah. As a person and as a leader, where are you headed? So you have multiple companies that you have started. What's next for you?
Yeah, next for me is, of course, that to grow Tello to the next level. That's the priority now. And there might be some other companies going to be added to that, not to say it much. And so that's, of course, all super exciting. So we're really trying to grow the business and to become a really major player. And yeah, that's the goal now. And after that, I can be honest about it. I'm currently here and enjoying it. So there's no need for me to really look ahead in life. Like it's, of course, important to let's say, be financially independent. And that's something I achieved. But for the rest, like I don't have ambitions to become president or listen. That's very difficult to become president anyway. But to do certain things, I do have some private stuff, so not the work related stuff that I'm still keen to do. Like I want to make a movie someday and climb mountains and that kind of stuff. But that's more.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, can you share a little bit more about that? Making a movie, climbing a mountain, very diverse, something very different. What pulls you towards that?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy doing something for the first time. And I think that's also something really fun, and especially with sports, if you make it out of a challenge, it's very cool. So yeah, I try to put myself in places where I can really take everything out of myself, from myself, and grow a lot. But then also not be a specialist in it because I also get bored quickly. So
Hmm.
I participated in a racing for cycling once. I did a kickboxing match. I climbed 2 mountains, went deep sea diving, and
Hmm.
and I thought you want to do everything you want to do at least once. And if you like it, you can do it more, but I don't intend to become a specialist.
Yeah. And if you were to make a movie, what would it be?
Yeah, that's actually I spent a lot of time working on that, and it's still very difficult to explain. But it's a bit, let's say, about the balance between the life that we think is ideal. So in our society here, and mainly the Western society, admire these people that are having, let's say, a surfer lifestyle. So they're like hippies living out of a van, and it's also something I did together with my wife. We need to respect her for that as well. Get on a week on a surfing trip from a van, and yeah, basically the story is around that there needs to be a balance. So if you only have one side, then it's nothing, and if you only have, let's say, the very Western side of it, where work is important, money is important, then you also don't get it. So it's about the balance between the two. And yeah, the newness is in the fact that the people idealize the one thing that's underdeveloped here, which is, let's say, the spiritual side of things, and the more, let's say, enjoying your life and not maximizing on things. But it's not everything, because I think you can be successful in both, and it's about finding the rhythm.
Yeah, yeah. I have been here in the Netherlands around 7 years, and I have lived most of my life before that in India. So moving here, I could see that how isolated I was in my own culture before that. But you have been in the Netherlands. So who are the key influences that exposes you to all of these different ideas, like even spirituality, even like not any non-Western idea? Who are the key influences in your lives?
Yeah, from people that I know, or people, that's of course two categories. But let's say from the big old thinkers, I think Carl Jung is a really big influence on my life. So he writes a lot. He's technically the inventor of synchronicity, which is something that's very important in my life. Basically, he also explained as serendipity or meaningful coincidences. But a lot of things he writes I really resonate with. But on my journey to get there, I had a lot of help. I had help from the founder of Wicked Grounds and Wicked Thoughts, Tom Verstappen. So he introduced me to my more spiritual side of things and really helped me develop that side, where I still benefit from every day, because that's one of the most important things in the balance that I have. But also, I think still, of course, also my family and my own background, I'm very grateful for, because they make an imprint on you. But a lot of people came on my path and helped me out. I think one more that's worth mentioning is Oscar Knapper, so the founder of Rockstar. So I was unofficially my mentor. I don't think he ever saw it like that, but he basically helped me out in a very difficult period of my life by sharing with me his wisdom about doing nothing and letting everything go for a while in order to find what you need to do. Because if you keep running, then you don't have time to actually manifest what you actually need. Yeah, that advice is advice that actually led to where I am today, and that's something I'm very grateful with. Worked with.
Yeah. Can you share a bit more? What's the wisdom of doing nothing? How does that play out?
Yeah, I was at a place where I was, let's say, a bit insecure about myself. So of course I had my success with the first company, but then also you have a bit of misses with other companies. And then at some point you're living like a student, and like you're a bit like, okay, what am I doing? And then you need to define your next step. And that's something where he helped me a lot. And then he was the one that told me to stop doing everything, including going to the gym, just like for 3 months, do nothing. And of course, I couldn't do nothing for 3 months. So I settled down for 1 week doing nothing. And yeah, the 1 week was already such a huge inspirement that I decided to I still wanted to work out, but let's say to do a lot less for a 3 month period. And after 1.5 months, I got a great opportunity coming to me, and that opportunity helped me grow back my confidence. So it is really also about giving yourself the time, and not having pressure all the time or expectations, but really about like feeling. And yeah, I think that he really understands it. I think I only got like the glimpse of it, but yeah, it helped me. It helped me a lot. It was really the right advice at the right time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I want to appreciate that because of how unusual that is, and also how not accepted that is in a world where we see business as a badge of honor. Yeah. And yeah, with my work with leaders, sometimes I recommend a very simple practice to sit in silence and just to listen to what is coming to you rather than trying to come up with an idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I also, in this time, I had to tell my parents that I was not going to look for a job, and I shouldn't call me every day to tell me if I already had a job. And of course, they called me every day. So like, do you already have a job? But like, eventually it all worked out.
Yeah, yeah. So as you said, right, it helped you build your confidence and also more like grounding in yourself. How else did that impact you? And then how does that doing nothing play a role in your day to day right now?
Yeah, now it's more or less, I think, subconsciously. Again, I think I've figured out more or less what my priority is in life and what's really important for me. It's more about layers. So I think it's going to sound very egoistic, but let's say the first thing you need to worry about is yourself. If you are not in touch with yourself or with your own energy, then how can you love or take care of anything else? So that's very important to be, yeah, let's say realistic about. And it sounds very wrong, but I think it's actually something that people should realize. And then after that, I think like it comes to my wife, who's of course the light of my life, but then also more my friends, which are super important to me. Then maybe my family, then even my dog, the house, like, and then somewhere below comes work. But again, people would describe me as being super ambitious. So I think it's about seeing the relevance in it and also not letting things define you. Like it doesn't make me a better person to have a great job, but it does put me in a position where I can have an impact on how leadership is viewed.
Again, thank you for sharing that, because and also it's not wrong. I think it's a very simple principle that you have to put your own oxygen mask first before helping anybody else.
Yeah.
And it sounds unusual, but I have seen it time and again that when people spend time or take time away from work and focus on their family or their passion, hobbies, their work also improves because of that.
Yeah.
Because they improve as a person. So I think these are very wise words. So thank you for sharing that and also being open about it. Yeah. So given where you are today, right, what are you most grateful for in your life?
Oh, yeah. I think gratefulness is key in life for sure. So I think it's basically, yeah, that sounds very big, but I'm really grateful for everything, like and for the people around me, for the blessings I had, because I'm very privileged in life. And also I was lucky sometimes, but mainly also about, let's say, how amazing I'm healthy, I'm good. I have, let's say, a beautiful wife and a good life. So everything is really good. And it's more, let's say, an effect of everything that happened in my life up until now. So even, let's say, you can grow up not maybe, let's say, having the best relationship with your parents, but that doesn't mean that you're not grateful for today for who you became. Because of course, for a large effect, it's still them. So those kind of things for me are things I'm very grateful for, my upbringing, and of course also all the opportunities I had career-wise. But yeah, I'm a blessed person.
Yeah. Thank you. And given everything that you have shared so far, how does it play a role in your leadership in when you're working, when you're at work, in terms of connecting with people, in terms of maybe talking about emotions or talking about taking a break? How does that work out in your leadership?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm a bit atypical. So I'm the same with my friends or with you, or that I would be with my colleagues, because that's just who I am, and that's sometimes a bit of a different approach that people expect. But I think that's the only way. And I think it's also better because like we're all humans, and it's way more fun if you have an actual relationship with people, not a fake relationship, or that people are doing some stuff around it. But it's also, of course, you value things. It makes it also sometimes more difficult, right? So if you make relationships with everybody and you need to let somebody go, it's also something that feels very hard on you personally. So it's not necessarily the easiest way, but I do think that if you can create an environment in your office where you have the feeling that you're friends with everybody and it's a fun experience for everybody, then I think that's very important, and also your success as a company.
Yeah. Thank you. Before we begin to wrap up this interview, what would you what would you give as an advice to an entrepreneur or a leader who is stuck in the wanting to make their company successful, wanting into stuck in the like being busy or in the hustling mode? What advice would you give them for their personal life as well as for their company?
Yeah, I think confidence is, of course, very, like it's always easily spoken about, but I think it's very key. So you need to really believe in something to make it. So I think on the highest level of things, I think it's important to, like, you need to be a believer, you need to be an optimist. So you need to be basically naive enough to believe in your own dreams, and then really go for it. And on the other hand, you also need to be realistic about when like you're going to cut off. And I think that leads into more practical advice, where I see a lot of founders going into the mistake that you really need to work towards success quickly, because yeah, life is short, time is short, the pressure is on, especially here in terms of what society expects, but also in terms of money and other resources. So yeah, if you start a company, then like you can make it simple and start trying out your ideas, and don't keep your idea to yourself because you've had people who steal it, but share it with as many people as possible. If you have a product, start selling it before you have it to see if people like it. And that kind of speediness is something that like a lot of people are getting stuck in because they work on a company, but they start with the Instagram page and all the other stuff that's not really important to the idea itself. And that is a very safe environment. So if you are creating an environment where you are more vulnerable yeah, let's say you are more taking a risk with yourself as well, you know a lot quicker and better what's good for you, and that will also reflect in your personal life.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that advice. I think it's that is on two levels, right? One is on the side of perfectionism and like do what is required and to test out your idea. And the second, what you mentioned about like sometimes slowing down, sometimes stopping can actually help you see what you cannot see, always being trying to fix the problem. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Very
Yeah. Yeah. Before we end, right, where can anybody who is listening find out more about you, what you're passionate about?
Yeah, it's LinkedIn is the most obvious one that I'm on. That they can type in my name and they can connect. So that's always good. And yeah, if people need advice about startups and stuff, they can always reach out and ask me a question. That's
Wonderful. Thank you, Thomas, for this 30 minutes you spent with me and how authentically and how openly you shared some of those elements, which I can agree that it can be difficult to sometimes share in the open, in the public. So I want to appreciate that, and I want to wish you best for the future, for your company, but also for everything else that you're planning to do, like the movie and the mountains. So have fun. Yeah.
Thank you, Sumit. And yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Sure. That's it for this episode of Choosing Leadership with Sumit Gupta. I choose leadership every time I record this podcast, and I invite you to do the same. I invite you to design a life of joy, meaning, pride, and satisfaction, not just for yourself, but also for those around you. This is what I do most naturally, to lovingly and gently provoke you, to help you see your own light, to help you see what you are already capable of. I say what might be uncomfortable for me to say or for you to hear, to show you that all our dreams which have been on hold are within our grasp. If you like the sound of it, do not forget to leave a rating. I invite you to subscribe to my newsletter at deployyourself.com/newsletter. You can also reach out on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook to share any other comment or feedback. I want to thank everyone who contributed to making this show a reality. And thank you for listening. Always remember that you are enough, you are loved, and you matter. This is Sumit. Until next time, keep choosing leadership.